Welcome to the deep dive. If you thought the global tech race was all about AI models and massive data centers, maybe think again. Today, we're looking at what feels like a new front line, and it's literally right in front of our eyes. We're diving into the really intense global competition for AI glasses.
Yeah, it's fascinating. These, smart eyepieces, they aren't just another gadget, are they? They seem to be emerging as possibly the next big computing platform. I mean, the device that could genuinely challenge the smartphone's dominance as our main way of interacting with the digital world.
Absolutely. We've been digging through a lot of analysis on this, trying to map out the whole strategic landscape. So our mission in this deep dive is to really explore the tech itself, pin down the major players, especially that US versus China dynamic that's shaping up, and get a handle on the huge technical hurdles and, frankly, the strategic stakes involved here.
Okay, maybe let's start with definitions. What exactly are we talking about? Because we're definitely moving beyond those, early kind of clunky attempts like Google Glass. This current wave of intelligent eyewear, it's really focused on consumer readiness. Think advanced optics, loads of sensors, tiny embedded displays, and sophisticated AI, all working together to overlay digital stuff onto your view of the real world seamlessly, ideally.
Right. So if I'm wearing a pair of these,
Yeah.
what am I actually seeing? What can I do?
Yeah.
It's got to be more than just a camera flashing a light for notifications. Yeah.
Oh, way more. The whole point is the utility has to be compelling enough that you'd pick these over reaching for your phone. Think of a persistent but sort of subtle heads-up display, a HUD maybe showing navigation or real-time data right there in your vision. They're talking real-time translation, pretty sophisticated voice and gesture controls, even instant object recognition. You look at a building, the glasses know what it is, maybe pop up some info.
So the real magic isn't just the display tech. It's that deep integration with AI, both powerful cloud AI, but also, crucially, AI running right there on the glasses.
Exactly. They have to connect to our existing digital lives, of course, but the design challenge is creating that seamless, really low latency experience. Latency is absolutely key. The moment you need that data, it has to appear instantly. Minimizing any lag between, say, the cloud and the device, that drives the whole design philosophy. Lightweight, power efficient, responsive enough to wear all day. That's the goal.
Okay, but let's ask the big question. Why should you, the listener, really care about another piece of potentially futuristic tech that, let's be honest, might just fizzle out? We've seen these hype cycles before.
That's fair, and it's critical because the research we've seen suggests the potential impact here is, fundamentally different from things like smartwatches, maybe. This feels more like a potential platform shift. It goes way beyond just novelty. If these devices actually take off, they could genuinely trigger a massive shift in how we interact with technology day to day.
How big a shift are we talking? Is it just incremental convenience or something more?
Think about the difference between holding a map or even your phone with a map app versus having the directions literally painted onto the road ahead of you through the glasses. These devices are designed to offload a lot of the tasks that currently glue us to our smartphones, checking messages, getting directions, simple comms. By making interaction hands-free, glance-based, it just fundamentally changes that relationship between us and the screen.
Can you give us a really concrete example of what that feels like?
Okay. Imagine you're in a foreign country trying to order coffee. Instead of fumbling for your phone, unlocking it, opening a translation app, typing or speaking, waiting, then looking back up all those kind of clunky steps. The glasses could give you real-time audio translation whispered in your ear, maybe even overlay a live translation of the menu text right onto the physical menu board you're looking at. That level of seamlessness, it opens up entirely new mixed reality experiences that just aren't possible with a phone.
Right. But that level of constant sensing, processing, data access, it immediately brings up the bigger issues, doesn't it? The non-technical stuff.
Precisely. And this is where it gets really complex. Beyond the tech specs, the implications are huge. We're talking market disruption, new security nightmares, and inevitably intense regulatory battles. Because whoever ends up dominating this platform, they get to define the standards for how information is consumed, maybe which apps get prioritized, and crucially, who controls this absolute torrent of visual and auditory data being collected globally. That's why this strategic battle for dominance is already so fierce.
Okay, let's unpack that battle then. Who exactly is fighting for dominance here? You mentioned the US and China squaring off.
We do. So in the US and sort of the wider Western market, Meta seems to be leading the commercial charge right now with their Meta Ray-Ban partnership. Their whole approach looks geared towards broad, almost fashion-conscious mainstream adoption, trying really hard to avoid that glass hole factor that plagued earlier devices.
And the other giants. You can't talk augmented reality without wondering about Apple and Google. What's the expectation there?
Oh, the expectation is definitely that both will jump in, probably quite aggressively. Apple especially has been the subject of rumors for years about advanced AR glasses, something that would integrate super deeply with their whole ecosystem. But what's also important and sometimes overlooked is the innovation happening underneath. You've got these specialized US companies, smaller firms, designing the really custom silicon for AR, advanced optics, the specific AI modules needed to make these things work efficiently on your face. That's a key strength.
Okay, and then flipping the coin, we've got China. Significant domestic players, a different kind of momentum.
Yes, absolutely. You have the major Chinese tech champions, Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo. They're all pouring resources into AI glasses. Their initial goal seems focused on dominating their huge domestic market first, and that lets them design hardware that integrates perfectly with those, well, highly integrated Chinese tech ecosystems like WeChat, etc.
And does the Chinese government play a direct role here? Similar to how they're pushing hard on semiconductor independence.
That's vital context, yes. China's tech policies are actively set up to favor these local champions. They get regulatory advantages, targeted funding. It helps them move fast. Plus, many Chinese tech firms already have the manufacturing scale and the know-how to actually produce these complex AR wearables and the tiny modules inside. And sometimes, ironically, they actually end up supplying some of those specialized components back to the Western companies we just talked about. It's a really tangled and politically charged supply chain. But while the ambition is massive, replacing the phone, even partially the sources we looked at are really clear that the hurdles are still enormous. For everyone involved, it's kind of a race against physics almost, and against basic human acceptance too.
Yeah, I can immediately see power, battery life, being the absolute killer. You need serious processing for real-time AR.
Yeah.
You can't strap a brick to someone's head or have it overheat.
That's the core tension, isn't it? To be something you'd actually buy and wear, it has to be lightweight, look reasonably normal, and deliver hours of pretty demanding use. Battery technology itself, battery density, is a huge bottleneck. And tied right into that is the AI processing. To avoid constantly pinging the cloud, which, introduces lag and kills the battery, these glasses desperately need powerful AI running locally, right on the device, for things like recognizing objects instantly, understanding gestures.
And the displays themselves sound incredibly tricky. How do you project a bright, clear image onto a transparent lens without making it look like a tiny TV screen, especially outdoors in bright sunlight?
It's a massive technical headache because you're competing with the real world's brightness. Building displays that are transparent, bright enough, have a decent field of view, and fit into a compact, normal-looking pair of glasses. That requires incredibly complex optics, clever power management. If the display isn't bright enough, the AR stuff just vanishes when you walk outside. And achieving that performance without generating a ton of heat right next to your temple, that's some seriously difficult engineering.
Okay, but let's say, hypothetically, they nail the hardware. Perfect battery, amazing display. The whole thing still lives or dies on the software, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Hardware success is almost meaningless without a thriving ecosystem. You need developers building apps, easy-to-use tools for creating content, killer applications people actually want. Think about the iPhone. Before the App Store was interesting, but not revolutionary. That whole software infrastructure for AR glasses, it's still really early days. Nascent.
And the societal barriers. I mean, a device that's potentially always on, always seeing what I see, always listening. That feels like the biggest privacy hurdle we've ever faced.
That's definitely the consensus from the research, yeah. Privacy and regulation are seen as huge potential roadblocks to mass adoption. Any device capable of constant recording, deep data collection about your environment and what you look at, potential surveillance. That naturally raises enormous red flags, legally and just with the public. And beyond that, for people to actually buy these in large numbers, the use cases have to be so compelling they justify the cost, and the price has to come way down. Early models are almost certainly going to be expensive, premium items, which will slow things down initially.
So this is where it really shifts from just a cool tech gadget discussion to serious strategic competition, right? This isn't just about selling consumer electronics.
Yeah.
It feels like it's about control over the next big wave of data, hardware standards, maybe even global influence.
Exactly. The sources really emphasize that point. Dominance in AI glasses seems to require dominance in the critical supply chain components, which inevitably pulls us back into that long-running friction over advanced semiconductors.
And we're talking highly specialized chips here, aren't we? Not just the generic stuff.
Precisely. We're talking about the chips needed for miniaturized AR optics, for super efficient, on-device AI processing, the kind of silicon that can run complex algorithms locally without draining the battery in 60 minutes. The US currently holds a lead in designing many of these cutting-edge chips, but China's massive push for semiconductor self-reliance means that they're working incredibly hard to close that gap. And US export controls, potentially targeting these specific types of advanced chips, just raises the stakes even higher.
Okay, so chips are one key friction point, a physical one almost.
Yeah.
What about the data itself? Where's the regulatory friction expected there?
It really centers on data localization and data sovereignty. So imagine a Western developer creates a killer AR app for, say, navigation or social interaction. China is very likely to enforce strict local data rules for any devices sold within its borders, demanding that all that visual data, contextual data the glasses collect stays inside China, which could make it difficult, maybe impossible, for Western apps to operate effectively in that huge market.
And flipping that around, if a major Chinese firm starts gaining significant global market share with their glasses, what kind of pushback might they face from the US or Europe?
Well, the concern would likely be around the default settings, the data access protocols baked into the operating system of those glasses. Where does the data go? Who controls it? You could potentially see the US or EU imposing their own restrictions, maybe even bans on certain components or software platforms, citing national security concerns about data flowing back to China. This tension between wanting open global standards versus needing data protection and security, that's absolutely central to the geopolitical fight here.
So boil it down for us. What is actually winning this race for AI glasses buy you on the global stage? What's the prize?
It's about global influence and fundamentally control over the next generation's core platform standards. Whichever side, the US or China, manages to establish their software platform as the dominant global standard for AR and AI. They get to control the operating system, the rules for data access, the entire developer ecosystem. That directly shapes who wins in global markets, who profits, and maybe more importantly, who controls the flow of information and sets the technological agenda worldwide for potentially decades.
Okay, so given all that competition and all those challenges, what do the timelines actually look like? When might we realistically see this revolution happening, if it does?
Well, connecting the dots from the research, there are a few phases predicted.
What's the near term looking like? Are we going to see people walking around wearing these next year beyond the tech enthusiasts?
So near term, think 2025 through 2026. We'll definitely see more early commercial models hitting the market from the big players, Meta, the leading Chinese firms. But these will likely remain pretty niche, probably quite expensive, premium products bought by early adopters, developers, likely still hampered by current limitations, especially battery life and maybe a lack of truly compelling apps.
Okay, so when does it potentially move beyond niche? When could this become a genuine mainstream competitor to the phone?
That seems pegged more to the midterm, maybe around 2027 to 2028. That's when mainstream adoption could start to accelerate. But it's predicted to be heavily dependent on breakthroughs in a couple of key areas. Significantly better battery technology is one, and the other is real ecosystem maturity. That means, those killer apps finally emerge, the user experience gets much smoother, and there's enough content to actually justify the purchase for average people.
And then the really long-term view, say 2030 and beyond, where the smartphone is today.
Yeah, looking out to 2030 plus, the research suggests AI glasses could become commonplace. Whether they truly compete head-to-head with smartphones, maybe even replace them for many tasks, or just end up coexisting alongside them. That seems to depend entirely on how quickly those fundamental technical limits, especially power and optics, get solved, and just how readily consumers embrace this entirely new way of interacting with digital information. It's still a big if.
Which brings us right back to that central tension we've been exploring in this deep dive, doesn't it? This whole race for the next computing platform seems to hinge on cracking these really hard physics problems power displays while navigating this intense US-China strategic friction over the critical chips and the data standards.
Exactly. And that leads us to a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. The ultimate fate of the smartphone might not just depend on whether the tech for glasses gets good enough. It might depend more on which side of this geopolitical divide actually wins the platform war. Because if the global winner, whether it's primarily US-led standards or China-led standards, controls the OS, the data flows, the apps that run on these glasses, how does that winner then ensure total market dominance? Do they aim to make the smartphone completely obsolete, or do they find it strategically advantageous to just relegate the phone you already own into being a secondary processing hub, basically a battery pack and modem for the glasses they control? The platform choices being made right now could well determine the future of that device in your pocket.
Definitely something to think about next time you glance down at that pocket computer. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.